You're listening to Insight from Capital Public Radio. I'm Beth Ruyak. New York Times bestselling author and Sacramento resident Brenda Novak is releasing her first book of the new Whiskey Creek series this summer. She has more than 4 million books in print, and yet she still calls herself that typical soccer mom, juggling 5 kids, carpooling, homework, being a wife and mother, and has a hugely successful career as an author. She is also releasing a free novella on her website August 1st, which we'll mention. She'll be signing books today and all this week at the State Fair's authors booth. Brenda, it's great to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. So if this was a normal day in the school year and you're trying to be all those things I just listed, what would your day be like?
Oh, I'd be getting up and getting the kids ready for school, getting them off, and then I would settle down to work after that.
You would?
Till they came home.
How much focused time of writing would you take?
Actually, all day. It's become a full-time job, and because my kids are getting a little bit older, that's getting easier to do. It was much more difficult when I started out and they were babies, but now it's not so hard.
Every carpool mom knows that as you're driving, sometimes you're listening to the conversation, sometimes your brain is going elsewhere.
That's right.
Did you have those times where you were like, oh, Ethan, the evil guy, I'm going to make him do this. Or, oh, Ruth is the sweet ingenue, and your brain would drift into your storylines.
Oh, totally.
Yes?
My husband always says things to me like, you're plotting, aren't you? If I'm not paying enough attention.
Yeah, or draw from little snippets of conversation along the way.
Yeah, true.
So a new series, a new book, if people are counting, is this like 38 or 39?
If you include the novellas, we're well into our 40s. I think 42, 43.
Wow.
So I lose track because I've got so many going at all times.
You just turned on the passion faucet and it just went, didn't it?
It did. And also, I mean, it helps become prolific in this day and age. That's how they build authors. So publishers, if they're pleased with your work, want to see you produce as much as possible. So, and I've always been a hard worker. I'm very driven. So the two together turns into 3 books a year.
Do you already know how many will be in the Whiskey Creek series? Will that be 3?
No, there'll be at least 9.
Okay.
So that's as far as I've plotted out in my head. There could be more, depending on how well the series does and depending on how much I'm still enjoying writing about that town and those characters. They're a group of really close friends, both male and female. So it's kind of fun to see these people 10 years after they've, gone to school together and how they still hang on and what their bonds are like and how they impact each other's lives and the drama in each of their lives. And so right now I'm really enjoying it.
We don't have that book in front of us, but I wanted you to do a reading.
Yes.
So you brought something to share with us from a previous novel.
Yes, and the reason why I did that is because this is one that I will be signing out at the fair. The new book doesn't come out until August 28th, so people wouldn't be able to get it at the fair, but it will soon be available, and then the next book will be available in November and the 3rd in February. So we're just starting the run of the first 3 in a few weeks. But this book is from a very popular series that most of it is set here in Sacramento. It's a 6-book series, and it's one that is always a fair favorite because so many of them, are set locally. So,
and the book is titled?
This one is titled Watch Me, and it's one of my romantic suspense novels. I do both. I do romantic suspense, and then the new series will be straight contemporary romance. So you won't have, diabolical villains in that one, but you will have some fun drama.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. Was he gone? Sheridan Cole lay in a heap on the ground, her clothes, her cheek, the entire left side of her body wet from the moist earth. The taste of her own blood sat bitter on her tongue, but the fecund smell of the thick vegetation growing all around reminded her of her childhood. She'd grown up in eastern Tennessee, in the small town of White Rock. Not that this was the kind of homecoming she'd expected. The scrape of a shovel let her know the man who'd attacked her was still close. So close she dared not move or even whimper. After a few turns of his spade, his breathing grew labored, and she heard him grunt every so often. Scrape, plop. Scrape, plop. The digging obviously wasn't easy, but it was rhythmic enough to tell her it was progressing. Although he wasn't particularly tall, he was strong. She knew that already. Even after she'd managed to get free of the rope that had bound her wrists, she hadn't been able to fend him off. Her determination to fight had only made him angrier, more violent. She was sure he would have killed her if she hadn't gone limp. She gingerly explored her top lip. It was split, but that was probably the least of her injuries. Unless she angled her head just right, blood rolled down her throat, choking her. She could barely open one of her eyes, and his fierce blows to her head had left her dazed, unable to think coherently. On some level, she knew she needed to get up and run now that he'd turned his attention elsewhere. But she couldn't stand, let alone make a dash for freedom. It was painful just to breathe. The promise of complete darkness and total silence hovered at the edge of her consciousness. She longed to embrace it, to drift away and leave her broken body behind. But her best friend seemed to be standing at her shoulder, shouting, "Get up, damn you. Don't you allow this, Cher. Gain the upper hand no matter what you have to do. Fight for your life." For a moment, Sheridan even wondered if she was sitting in one of Sky's self-defense classes back at the victims' charity they'd started 5 years ago. But then she felt the rain lightly sprinkling her parted lips, forehead, eyelashes. She was in the forest, in the middle of the night, alone with a man wearing a ski mask, and he was digging her grave.
The intrigue. New York Times bestselling author Brenda Novak. It just begs for a soundtrack. So I want to have a little fun here with you, okay?
Okay.
There's so many YouTube clips with trailers from your books or little reviews. So I pulled out this music. I want to see if you recognize it.
Okay. I do.
You do?
That's from The Perfect Couple, which is also part of this series, and that book is set in Rockland, which is where I just moved. So it's fun to see all those places that, were in the book.
Well, the book was a fun part of the series, and I just want to throw out there to anybody who might know the name of that piece of music, because I think it's beautiful. I'd love to try to tackle it. Do you know?
I can find it for you. The gal who created that is here local, Jeannie Rush. She does a great job with that type of thing, and I can ask her what she used.
But it's exactly the kind of underlay
yeah,
for all
well, it builds
of your
that
style
tension,
of
and
yeah.
it's kind of, I thought she did a good job with that selection.
So the new Whiskey Creek series and When Lightning Strikes is the first book that's coming out. There are some reviews out for it already.
Are
And
there?
There are some. Thankfully, our associate producer, Midori, was hard at work this morning, and she found this review. Good, strong, very definitive characters. Writing and plotting is interesting. Very readable book. That's from Feathered Quill. And then Publishers Weekly said, a heartwarming romance that develops slowly and sweetly.
Yeah, this is a little bit lighter, this new series. So it'll be fun to see, everybody sort of build a relationship with this town and these characters.
The state fair signings, do people come talk to you about the characters in your book like they are family?
They do. And what's funny is you get people who come back year after year. It's like, I don't think they understand that you can get the books in the bookstore in between. They wait for year to year and then come back. But I love that. That's part of the fun of it.
They want to meet you. And that free novella, that's a fun idea. That'll be up August 1st?
Yes, that'll be up August 1st. And that's about a woman who's going to a wedding, but it's the wrong wedding. So that one's kind of a fun story. I thought that was something that turned out pretty well.
Well, thanks for being with us. I know you'll be back again because this stream of storylines is never ending for you. So nice
well,
to meet you,
so.
Brenda.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Brenda Novak, and again, she will be signing the first book of her Whiskey Creek series today at the State Fair Authors Booth. No, you won't have that book. You'll have other books. Okay, but she is at the Authors Booth from 2 to 10 p.m. and more times for the rest of the week. Those details are at capradio.org/insight. And that's Insight for today. We always like to hear from you. You can link to our Facebook page or tweet me at @RadioRuyak. I am Beth Ruyak. Insight's senior producer is Jen Picard. Our assistant producers are James Morrison and Lynn Weaver. Our technical director is Mark Jones. Our engineer is Evan Metzler. And our associate producer is Midori Yoshimura. And then there's you. So thank you for joining us.